Under a dome of polished silver and refracted suns, the galactic embassy on Verruct Prime shimmered like a jewel afloat in starlight. Delegates from 500 species circled the atrium's suspended platforms, each drifting gently in grav silence, connected by threads of light. The crowd buzzed with layered voices, some guttural, others musical, a few subsonic. Here, ceremony meant spectacle, and today's was billed as historic. First contact treaty with Terra. They arrived with no fanfare, just a small, unarmed shuttle, matte black, Earth's crest etched in understated chrome. The doors hissed open, and two humans stepped onto platform Sigma. One, a man and a woman, polished shoes, matching dark suits. Not armor, not robes, just fabric and calm. The VARC-10 representative blinked. Twice. That's it, he whispered through his translator gland. The woman adjusted her cuffs. Commander Lila Granger, she said, offering a gloved hand to no one in particular. The man beside her nodded mildly. Lieutenant Marcus Granger. Diplomatic arm, Navy SEAL detachment. Spouses. Earth thanks you for the welcome. Several species gasped. Spouses? A diplomat and a soldier, same person, same mission, same bed? Unheard of in most empires. Sacrilege in a few. The VARC-10 commander, a massive beast of overlapping bone plates and shimmering antennae, waved a claw dismissively. Step forward. Do not speak unless addressed. And remove your weapons. Lila smiled. We're unarmed. Marcus added, physically. The room didn't laugh. Humor translated poorly. They were led across the platform to the central ceremonial circle, hovering midair and watched by a trillion eyes through live quantum relay. A voice boomed, reverberating through metal and bone. Let the record show that Earth enters this council under probationary peace, with observers present from the Zolari Pact, the Zern Trade Federation, and the Kolar Conclave. As protocol demanded, a dozen envoys each approached the couple for inspection. Sniffing, clicking, staring. One jelly-based creature attempted to osmose Lila's shoe. She tolerated it with a smile as Marcus leaned down and gently tugged her heel free, whispering, "Diplomacy is moist." She barely held in the laugh. After the initial parade of strange customs, the ceremony narrowed in focus. The ambassador from the Zarnok Dominion, 3 meters tall, scales like obsidian, and eyes that pulsed like cooling magma, approached with theatrical steps. Zarnok were known for many things: honor duels, caste rigidity, and notoriously bad tempers when challenged. Marcus had studied them in training. The Zarnok stopped just short of the Grangers. "You bring no offering," the translator droned in crisp monotone. Lila offered a small bow. "Earth brings knowledge, alliance, and stability." Marcus added, "We also have cookies." Somewhere in the upper tiers, a Slarn-D diplomat choked on their fluid tank. The Zarnok stared. Then, with no warning, no wind-up, just a blur of scaled muscle, the alien slapped Marcus across the face with an open claw. The sound echoed like a whip crack. The crowd froze. Marcus didn't move. A slow exhale. A blink. Then he turned to his wife. "Honey," he asked casually. 2 seconds. Lila was already removing her earrings. 2 seconds. What followed was so fast that half the audience didn't even see it. Marcus stepped forward. His fingers barely flicked at the Zarnok's chest. A ripple traveled through the creature's body, like a wave caught in metal. Bones collapsed inward. The beast staggered, eyes wide, limbs twitching, and then crumpled to the ground in a twitchless heap. Silence. Unnatural. Unbroken. Lila knelt briefly, checked for a pulse, and stood. Cause of death. Terminal arrogance. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in chaos. Voices overlapped. Holograms snapped offline. One ambassador began shedding limbs in fear. And yet the humans stood perfectly still, as though this had all been routine. "We did warn you," Marcus said mildly, brushing non-existent dust from his sleeve. From the shadows, a smaller alien, wiry, rodent-like, wearing 6 translator bands, approached cautiously. "Excuse honored humans. Was that permitted?" Lila looked thoughtful. "Technically, slapping a seal is an act of war." Marcus added. We just treated it like an invitation. The room began to recalculate. Suddenly, their posture, once interpreted as deferential, seemed tactical. Their smiles, predatory. The soft tones in their voices now hummed with veiled menace. Back in the command pit, two aides from the VARC-10 military whispered, "Was that legal? I don't think legality applies anymore." Moments later, a transmission from Earth's central diplomat holographed into the center of the atrium. She wore a white blazer and soft makeup, her tone chirpy. "Hello, council friends. Hope everyone's well. Quick reminder, our representatives are fully trained in over 70 forms of combat and diplomacy, often both. If local customs include physical confrontation, we suggest not initiating. Earth values peace, but we also value our people." The hologram winked and vanished. The room didn't exhale. It held its collective breath, calculating anew. Marcus turned to Lila, quietly. "You okay?" She nodded, tapping her jaw. "Barely a bruise." Then she faced the silent crowd and spoke, her voice gentle, but resonant. "Earth came here in peace. We brought open hands, not clenched fists. But don't confuse calm with weakness. If provoked, we will respond. Briefly and efficiently." She turned back toward the docking platform. Marcus smiled at the stunned room. "Now, where can a guy get coffee around here?" They walked off without hurry, side by side, married, unarmed, lethal. Behind them, the dead Zarnok's body was quietly airlifted out under a diplomatic shroud. A new whisper began rippling through the alien delegates. "Never slap a human." And deeper still, beneath the formalities and policies, another word rose, passed quietly, fearfully. "SEAL. Not a soldier, not a species, a myth." And just like that, Earth's first impression had been made. 1 slap, 2 seconds, dead alien, and polite, smiling monsters left in its wake. 2 seconds later, the Zarnok enforcer lay folded at the foot of the dais. His chest caved in like a crushed drum, eyes glazed, one claw twitching in a spasm of post-mortem confusion. What made it worse? Worse than the abrupt death, worse than the silence thick enough to choke a diplomat, was the expression on the human's face. Marcus Granger hadn't so much as furrowed his brow. He looked, if anything, disappointed. Lila crouched beside the collapsed alien and calmly scanned its body with her diplomatic-issued band. Collapsed sternum, 3 punctured organs. Shock-induced neural severance. Likely died before he hit the floor. She stood, dusting her knees with a flick. "You didn't even use your elbow." Marcus shrugged. He wasn't worth the rotation. Around them, the assembly hadn't yet found its next breath. It was as if the moment had suspended Verruct Prime itself. Delegates hovered motionless on lev pads. Translators blinked in recursive error. Someone or something was quietly vomiting bioluminescent goo in the upper tiers. Finally, the VARC-10 commander clicked his jaws and muttered, "Was that necessary?" Lila turned her head just a fraction and smiled like someone trying not to bite. No, it was efficient. Behind the Grangers, their shuttle's onboard AI crackled through a static channel. Local customs verified. Marked as hostile. Returning to standby orbit. Marcus activated his lapel mic copy. Begin listening sweep. Record all council chatter for psychological profiling. Tier 4 encryption standard paranoia protocols. The VARC-10 flinched. Someone muttered, "They came with surveillance?" "Always," Lila said sweetly, not turning. "We find that most species tell the truth better when they don't know they're being watched." The assembled delegates had no script for this. Humans weren't supposed to behave like this. They were supposed to stumble, ask dumb questions, bring peanut butter and anxiety, maybe sing. But what stood before them now were two individuals who had walked calmly into the galactic center of power and turned an insult into a public execution, without sweat, without shouting, without fanfare. It wasn't just power. It was restraint. It was precision. And it scared them more than any declaration of war. A skittering diplomat from the Crassine Confederacy, a species resembling translucent mantises, leaned toward her colleague and hissed, What does SEAL stand for? The other tapped into an archive feed, eyes widening as he read. Sea, air, and land. Special warfare. Humans bred for unpredictability. Close quarters. Surgical strikes. Psychological destabilization. Non-conventional tactics. Diplomacy optional. Oh, the Crassine said faintly. Lila took 2 measured steps forward and addressed the audience in her clearest Earth-neutral cadence. There are some things you should know about us, she began. Earth is not the largest planet, not the most resource-rich. We don't have plasma blood or acid breath. What we have is imagination, which in humans is just a polite word for dangerous unpredictability. Marcus added, we evolved to hunt creatures stronger than us. We learned to make tools before we had fire. We invented war before we figured out plumbing. Lila nodded. We put our best killers into suits. We call them diplomats. A delegate from the Ruthique Dominion, a cold-blooded strategist species, finally broke the silence. What is your intent here? Colonization? War? Lila tilted her head, as though considering dessert. Neither. We came to establish relations, open trade, possibly make friends. You slapped us. So we recalibrated. The Ruthique looked uncertain. But you didn't declare retaliation. No ships. No fleets. Marcus glanced at Lila. She grinned. You think you'd see it coming? That silence returned, deeper now. This wasn't an isolated event. It was a signal. A murmur began to rise. Not spoken, but felt. The tension crawling across tentacles, wings, neural filaments. A story was forming. The humans had killed a Zarnok brute in front of 500 worlds, and smiled while doing it. And they'd said this was restraint. Within minutes, private comms lit up across the galaxy. Panic cloaked in professionalism. Activate observation protocols on Earth. Pull history files. Cross-reference ancient warfare patterns. List every human interaction with species under galactic status tier 3 and below. Isolate footage of human facial expressions. Decode them. They don't match verbal intent. In the embassy's private observation chamber, 2 archivists whispered nervously over a holomap. She struck him with her words more effectively than with a weapon. He struck him with nothing at all. Then what killed the Zarnok? Fear, maybe. Or worse, skill. Marcus tapped his wristband again. Query Earth Command. Inform them of breach. Log incident under Operation Santrap. The name made one alien diplomat shiver. Santrap. Lila explained cheerfully. It's a golf term. But if you're unfamiliar, think of it as a place you don't know you're in until it's too late to swing. She stepped forward, boots clicking softly on the polished stone. We're not here to conquer you, but we will defend our people and our boundaries. Marcus's voice lowered a register, polite as ever. And if you ever touch my wife again, I'll fold your DNA into a square. Another silence. This one didn't feel like fear. It felt like surrender. Then someone clapped. Slow. Sarcastic. From the west end of the chamber, a tall, bird-like ambassador from the Zalari rose and gave a thin, unreadable smirk. Bravo, Earth. You made your point. Perhaps too well. Lila's expression didn't change. We prefer clarity. The Zalari cocked its head. Tell me, then, what does humanity want from this alliance? Marcus didn't miss a beat. A seat at the table. Access to shared navigation routes. Diplomatic immunity. And coffee. Someone laughed. A thin, nervous burst of sound. The kind that tried to diffuse bombs with humor. Lila turned to leave, then paused, almost as an afterthought. Also, she said, we'd like it noted that Earth doesn't initiate violence. She gestured at the corpse. That was your doing. The body was already being cleaned up. Quietly. Efficiently. Nobody spoke of it, but everyone was thinking about it. Processing it. 2 seconds. That's all it took for the tide to turn. And that was what made it terrifying. Not the speed. Not the strength. But the calculation. As they left the ceremonial floor, Lila leaned toward her husband. You okay? He nodded. Had worse from your mom's handshake. She smirked. She likes you now. Doesn't show. She's from Michigan. Fair. They shared a glance. Not romantic. Tactical. The kind of glance that held thousands of joint hours in hostile territory. The kind of glance that meant go loud if I blinked twice. They didn't blink. Outside the main hall, in a corridor designed for silent transport, their AI briefed them in hushed tones. 5 species now list you as high threat. 2 have requested back-channel negotiations. 1 is preparing a preemptive retreat from Earth's perimeter systems. Would you like to escalate? Marcus looked at Lila. She shook her head. Not yet. Let them squirm. Let them try to translate our expressions. Let them guess. Marcus grinned. We give them a week. She paused. Then we give them 2 days. Then we show them phase 2. And with that, the humans disappeared into the corridor. Behind them, the galaxy scrambled to understand what, exactly, it had just invited in. Because now they knew. Earth didn't send its best diplomats. It sent its most dangerous couple. The Galactic Council had seen aggression before, wars launched mid-negotiation, assassins disguised as translators, even the occasional species that believed diplomacy began only after planetary conquest. But never in the Council's long and bloody history had a member responded to an insult with 2 seconds of silence and a corpse. Now, the entire embassy ran on tension. Hallways buzzed with hushed calls. Surveillance drones tracked the Grangers' every step, though none dared intercept. Security protocols were rewritten mid-code. Biometric scanners recalibrated. Analysts tried to calculate just how many ways humans could kill, lie, or smile in a way that wasn't friendly. The humans, for their part, acted completely normal. Marcus lounged in the observation dome, sipping something hot and bitter from a glass mug he'd produced from somewhere. His feet were propped casually on the console of a centuries-old galactic navigation chart. His boots left faint dust prints on star maps older than Earth's nuclear age. Lila stood nearby, her jacket off, sleeves rolled. She was mid-conversation with a jittery Court Hari envoy, whose jelly-like limbs kept shivering with barely restrained fear. I'm saying, she repeated patiently, we didn't escalate. We merely corrected the rune's assumptions. But the Zarnok is dead. Lila smiled. Better 1 corpse than 10,000. You know what we call that where I'm from? The envoy blinked. A tragedy? A bargain. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the council, a private chamber of high command met under sealed light and no recordings. A Trikin admiral with 6 eyes and an AI-linked cortex slammed a tendril against the table. We invited predators into our home. No, said the Zalari ambassador, wings tucked tight. We invited diplomats. They just turned out to be the same thing. For the first time in decades, the council whispered Earth's name with a different tone, cautious, reverent, fearful. The data analysts began compiling human history in urgency. Files that had sat dormant since first contact were now required reading. Footage of Terran history, tribal conflict, guerrilla ambushes, drone strikes flooded the servers. They rewatched ancient clips of humans smiling while firing weapons, laughing during chaos. The phrase began trending across interstellar networks. The Predator's smile. It came from an old Earth vid, one where a soldier grins just before vanishing into the jungle. A phrase once used for propaganda, now used as a warning. Back in their quarters, Lila and Marcus sat side by side reviewing intercepted council logs. Lila scrolled through the panicked entries, smirking. They're trying to psychoanalyze sarcasm. Marcus whistled low. Good luck with that. Half our species doesn't understand it. They've already requested a translator upgrade for passive-aggressive tone. Next they'll want an index of dad jokes. She leaned back, watching him. Do you ever miss the old kind of war? He paused. No rules. No cameras. He considered. I miss the simplicity, not the noise. There was a knock, a subtle vibration, not physical sound. Only a few species could knock without hands. Marcus opened the door to reveal a slender, cloaked alien. Its features were unreadable. A diplomat from the Kolar Conclave, a species known for secrecy and precision. It bowed its neck. May I enter? Lila gestured to the chair without rising. Depends. You here to declare war, surrender, or gossip? Information, it said. In exchange for mercy. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Mercy is free. Honesty costs. The alien hesitated. Then consider this credit. The visitor explained that a private faction within the council had been planning to use Earth as a buffer zone against the Groth. That humans were meant to fight, not negotiate. A sacrificial vanguard species. You were never meant to sit at the table, it whispered. Only die near it. Lila's voice went flat. They invited us to bleed. They counted on it. The room was quiet. Then Marcus leaned forward. You ever watched a bear wake up, thinking winter's not over? The alien tilted its head. Hey, bear. Marcus smiled faintly. Give time. As the envoy left, escorted by silent drones, Lila turned to her husband. Did you know? Suspected. And we walked in anyway? We strolled in. Lila cracked a knuckle. Now we stroll out? He shook his head. Not yet. Now we play. Elsewhere, news of Earth's sudden power rippled into strange places. On the outer fringes of the galaxy, pirate factions halted raids to rewatch footage. Mercenary guilds recalculated their recruitment policies. A black market arms dealer sent an emergency recall on counterfeit Terran weapons, afraid someone might test them on a real SEAL. A story began to crystallize. 2 humans, unarmed, smiling, 1 dead enforcer, and the beginning of fear. Back on Varuk Prime, another closed-door session unfolded. This one with 5 species seated behind soundproof walls and quantum locks. One ambassador asked, how do we neutralize them? The answer came from an ancient species that had once warred with the precursors. You don't. You adapt. You change the game, or you lose it. That night, Marcus and Lila stood on the skybridge outside their quarters. Below them, the city pulsed, hovercars like fireflies, comms buzzing, security presence doubled. Lila watched the lights. They'll come for us. They should. We're outnumbered. We always were. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Still prefer this to Afghanistan. He chuckled. Less sand. More style. She looked up. Do you think Earth's ready for what comes next? Marcus exhaled through his nose. I think the galaxy isn't ready for Earth. Behind them, the terminal pinged. A message from Earth Command. Begin Phase 1 grid expansion. All listening post-screen. Assets embedded across 7 sectors. Marcus read it twice. They have no idea. Lila smiled. And as the galaxy worked overtime to decipher the threat, to study the smile, to trace every twitch of human behavior, the humans had already begun Phase 1. There was no formal declaration, no countdown, no fanfare, just a blinking signal on an outdated console in the bowels of Varuk Prime's embassy tower, missed by most, ignored by all, except for the 2 humans seated across from one another in a dim conference room, sipping mediocre tea and pretending to care about upholstery patterns in diplomatic chambers. Lila Granger's eyes flicked once to the signal, then back to Marcus. He gave the faintest nod. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. That was the gift of 12 years of marriage forged under gunfire and betrayal, missions stitched together with blood and wit. A glance was as good as a battle plan. In that moment, humanity's true mission began. While alien analysts puzzled over human psychology charts and misread smiles as submission, Earth's hidden hand had been moving. Quietly, strategically. Not to invade, not to conquer, but to integrate, in a way no one would see coming. And now, the integration phase was ending. Control was next. Across 5 sectors, human science envoys began rerouting energy flow from shared hyperlanes. A gift of free diagnostic upgrades from Earth's AI specialists embedded malware into council comms. Cultural exchange programs quietly installed listening devices into the classrooms of galactic youth. Every device bearing the Terra sigil carried more than goodwill. It carried command. And all of it began here, in this room, with a polite, deadly couple whose smiles had caused an empire to flinch. Marcus set down his mug. We waited. We asked nicely. Lila leaned forward, voice low. You mistook patience for permission. Outside, alarms began to ping, not loud enough for panic, just noticeable enough to inspire sweat. On the orbital scanners, above Verruct Prime, Earth's unarmed cargo ships, rearranged. Hulls folded open, revealing internal weapon racks disguised as trade crates. Turrets rotated silently into position. Power signatures jumped by 600%. In the Council's central war room, panic bloomed. They're not warships, someone stammered. Their registry says cargo. A Zalari general spat a curse. They were always warships. We just didn't know the language. Meanwhile, the Grangers walked the grand hallway toward the diplomatic chamber, unhurried. Alien guards stood frozen, unsure whether to salute, run, or shoot. None did any of the above, because Marcus was smiling again, and the galaxy now knew exactly what that meant. Inside the chamber, a collection of the highest-ranking species waited, each of them trying to look calm, each of them now understanding that they'd invited apex predators to sit at their polish table, and had offered them appetizers. Lila stopped at the center. No podium, no weapons, just words. You think we came to make allies, to build trust. You thought Earth was seeking protection from stronger forces. She glanced at the blinking map behind the delegates. Dots representing Earth's embassies, now flickering with red pulses. We came, she said softly, to learn your weaknesses. Marcus stepped beside her, and to teach you ours, so you'd feel superior. The Kohler emissary rose. This is an act of war. Lila's eyes narrowed. No, this is the end of one. She gestured, and in a dozen systems, Earth stealth drones came out of sleep mode, positioned already above key planetary communication hubs, thanks to years of quiet cooperation, blind ambition, and good faith treaties. And every one of them activated. Nothing exploded. Not yet. Instead, all interstellar broadcasts halted. Every screen, every comm, every channel, replaced with a single image. Two humans sitting in a white-walled room, sharing a breakfast, laughing. It wasn't a threat. It was worse. It was casual. Earth wasn't angry. Earth was ready. In the room, the ambassador from the Feat asked in a slow, rattling breath, "Why didn't you just invade?" Marcus turned to him. "Because we don't want your planets, or your slaves, or your wealth." Lila finished. "We want your respect." A pause. Then, "And your silence." From the ceiling, a soundless pulse flashed. It was not a weapon, but every ambassador flinched as if struck. Their implants buzzed. Memories briefly skipped. For half a second, time itself jittered in the room. That was Earth's newest toy, and they had no name for it. "You slapped my husband," Lila said finally, her tone calm. "So we rewrote your security architecture." Marcus added, "You tried to make us dogs of war. Instead, you taught us how to move between your walls. We learned your codes. We mapped your secrets. And now," Lila concluded, "you have two choices." She extended a small chip the size of a fingernail. "Accept Earth as your equal, or find out what happens in the third second." A long silence followed, but it wasn't indecision. It was realization. One by one, species that had once mocked humanity began to download the patch. Earth's integration framework, built not on control, but dependence. And they knew it. They were already too late. Every ship, every archive, every digital breath they took, it already passed through Earth's filters. Outside, the sky shimmered as Earth's vessels turned away, not retreating, but rotating into defensive stances, showing teeth. Just enough. Inside, the council began to vote. The Grangers left before the count was done. They already knew the result. Back in their quarters, Lila removed her boots and sat on the bed. "How long do we give them to pretend they chose this?" Marcus sat beside her. "A week. Maybe two. Then we roll out the entertainment division." She raised a brow. "TV. Phase 2, he said. "Cultural conquest." She smiled. "Because humans never conquered like others. They didn't take your land. They made you laugh at your own doom. And that was the scariest weapon of all."